Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Tuesday, the 3rd of June. That makes this the news for Monday, June 2nd, day 1195 of Russia's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from this major European capital currently under siege. And I see the peeps are coming in. Hey, Chef Deb. Hey, Joe, what do you know? What's going on? Hey, David, Big Baby. User telephone number. Warren, Dawn is here. Hey, Mad Mike. Hey, GG. Hey, greetings, Holly. Hey, Bernard. I had a great weekend. How'd you do? Hey, Kiliak. What's everybody doing? Hey, Bakhmut. Charles, I've been well. How are you? Hey, PH. Hey, Roy Daniels. I was chatting with Roy Daniels a little bit today. So, ladies and gentlemen, how live, not Memorex. Hey, Altered Carbon. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Renvox. Hey, Richard Prexis. I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary. Hey, Ashy Slashy. Hey, Super User. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of this channel, guys. Friday will be the 2-year anniversary. So I haven't thought about what we'll do on Friday night. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. But we should do something special for Friday. It'll also be the 10-month anniversary of the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk, which, you know, the Russian propaganda machine wants you to believe that that operation was a total waste of time. It was not. It was an extraordinarily effective operation, and it is ongoing. For 10 months now, Ukrainian troops have gone to bed and woken up in control of Russian territory. And Joe, you know we can't do that here. TikTok will shut us right down. Tony Takiri one time was on live with me and just had a beer. I was banned for a week. Anyway. Richard Street, we don't really know the answer to that question. How much information sharing was there from NATO? We don't really know. I mean, it appears that the Ukrainians kept the entire Operation Spiderweb really under wraps, and none of the strategic partners knew about it. There was some conflicting sense from the White House about that, but we don't know. We just don't know. It does not appear that the Ukrainians consulted anybody. And somehow they managed for 18 months to plan this operation, pull it off, keep it secret, and no one leaked it on Signal. Not one person. Which really says something about the professionalism of the Ukrainians and the lack of professionalism from the current administration. Now, there are a couple of things I want to talk about with this because so while we don't know, Richard, what kind of information sharing went on, one thing that we know is that Ukraine did the world a fucking favor, a huge favor. When we think about Russia's nuclear triad, one of the 3 pillars of that triad is the strategic bomber fleet. These Tu-95s, they're the same bombers that regularly buzz our aircraft over Alaska. Think about what the American taxpayer spends every year scrambling fighters, escorting Russian fighters away from American airspace, or Russian bombers away from American airspace, just dealing with that bullshit from them. We don't have to foot that bill anymore. We don't have to do that. J. Kennedy, 6'7". That's not John Kennedy, is it? I know a pilot named John Kennedy. Not the John Kennedy, but a John Kennedy. Is that the John Kennedy I know from Kyiv? Or no? No, okay. So anyway, did the world a huge favor. 34% of the strategic bomb. Now we don't know, right? People are saying today, oh, it's only 13 planes that were destroyed. Well, maybe. The Ukrainians have video of their hits, and they're saying it was 41. Now, we shouldn't just take their word for it. I agree. We should see the evidence. But I saw the pictures from Belaya Air Base today, the satellite photos. Those satellite photos very clearly show 4 Tu-95s destroyed on the tarmac. Then probably, it's hard to tell, but probably another 6 Tu-22s. So right off the bat, there's 10 planes. That's a large chunk of the strategic force. Those Tu-95s, the Russians only have 47 of them. 23 of them are not flying at any given time. And won't Russia retaliate? When you're the aggressor, you don't get to retaliate. The Russians have been doing their worst to this country for 3 years now, ongoing. The idea that somehow they're going to retaliate, what are they going to do? They're going to nuke us? Good. Let them do it. 43 minutes later, 500 years of Russian existence comes to an end. 1 in 4 Russians live in Moscow and Petersburg. People that live in glass houses shouldn't threaten nuclear weapons, right? So the first thing here is the hit to Russia's nuclear triad. The bombers that carry the nukes are in ashes this morning, many of them, maybe as many as a third of the fleet. Then we've got reports of a strike, and we don't know if it was done with the container drones or if it was sabotage or partisans. There's very little information. But the nuclear fleet of subs all the way up in Severodvinsk, up by Murmansk, that got hit. That was very definitely burning yesterday. You can hear in the video from Severodvinsk a cook-off of ammunition. Now, maybe it was just partisans hitting an ammo depot up there in the north. But it's interesting that on the same day that the strategic bomber fleet, one of the 3 pillars of the nuclear triad, was hit, so too were the nuclear-powered and nuclear-armed submarines of the Russian Federation. A second leg of the nuclear triad appears to have been hit. Again, Ukraine just doing the world big favors. Is that true, Sergey, that there are Russian bomber parts for sale on eBay? That's funny. Now, in terms of consequences of this, there is an immediate consequence. The Russians are not going to be able to run the number of bombing runs against Ukrainian civilians that they have been doing with impunity for the last 3 years. Those days are over. They don't have the planes, if what we're being told by the Ukrainians is true. And I have found that the Ukrainians, when they say something, it tends to get borne out as true. So it looks to me like yesterday's operation was far more successful than anybody could ever have planned. There's been another consequential knock-on effect of this attack, the Russian trucking industry has screeched to a halt. Trucks are backed up for miles at checkpoints, waiting to be searched all over the country. Now, this is a problem. You've got a country whose economy is already constrained by sanctions, and you're going to slow everything down now. Not only that, you got to put men in the field, men that you can't send to the meat grinder. You got to keep those men in the field searching those trucks. Russian paranoia is going to be off the scale. The responses from the Russian people themselves are remarkable. Oh, Magnus Carlsen is here. Everybody say hello to Magnus Carlsen. He had a great idea. He wanted to share a live sponsorship. So he said he would send in $25 if somebody else would. And Scully sent in from Down Under, sent in $25. So she's one of the sponsors of tonight's live. And then Julian Irvine sent in $15. So he's a sponsor of tonight's live. And Jerry O in Ireland sent in $10. So he's our third sponsor tonight. And so you guys are all the sponsors, and Magnus is not, because he never sent anything in. So good going, Magnus. Good going. You got other people to do it for you. I have a lot of respect for that. Slava Ukraini. Okay. Now, where do these things come from? Annette, ignore the trolls. Don't feed them. That's a reference to a journalist. And the details of the story are not clear to me, so I shouldn't really talk about it. But when you see somebody bring that name up, just know that they're a useful idiot of the Kremlin, or they're an employee of the Kremlin trying to sow dissent. That's what you should think when you see that name come up. Because it's nonsense. What is the point of the UN? The UN had a point at one time, and I think it still could have a mission to serve, but it needs significant reform. You can't have a body who says it's dedicated to the rule of law and then have the Saudis run the Humanitarian Council or the Human Rights Watch part of things. You can't have an organization dedicated to the universal rule of law and have the Russians on the Security Council with a veto power. The UN is completely ineffective in Ukraine because Russia's the aggressor and they're a permanent member of the Security Council. Now, they shouldn't be. The charter for the founding documents of the UN give that seat to the Soviet Union. There is no Soviet Union. The Russians just assumed the mantle of Soviet authority when the Soviet Union broke up, but that's bullshit. There were 15 Soviet nations. Why should Russia have the Security Council seat instead of Ukraine? Why shouldn't that Security Council seat rotate among the 15 countries that were once members of the Soviet Union? So the UN will never have any impact on Ukraine. Yeah, it's just that simple. Not as long as Russia has a veto on the Security Council. So oh yeah, Brian. Enemies of Putin will take advantage of the coming dissolution of the Russian Federation. They are lining up to do it now. You're absolutely correct. Thanks, Alex. Sorry, I just needed to boot that troll. Zelensky's run away. What? He's at the B9 conference. Come on, give me a break. Drumming up support for Ukraine. He's the guy who said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. Great line. What is your opinion of the end game here? That is the whole problem, Mark. Russia doesn't have an end game. Putin, in his arrogance and ignorance, believed that his forces would sweep across this country. All the projections said Kyiv would be taken in 3 days. Mopping up of forces would take another 3 weeks. Within a month, the entire country would be secured by the overwhelming force of the Russian Federation forces. That did not come to pass. And Putin is a strong man in a backward autocratic nation. He's like the silverback gorilla in a troop of gorillas. If he doesn't win in Ukraine, if he can't show his people that they've won, some other silverback with 6-inch canines is going to disembowel him in Red Square. That's his future. That's absolutely the only future that there is no retirement program for Russian dictators. Any day now, Swan Lake could start playing on Russian state TV, and we won't hear anything until there's a new person in charge over there. So, Mark, the whole problem here is that there is no end game, and Putin has to double down. And we saw that today from the Russian mill blogger community, which is melting down over this attack against the Air Force. One Russian mill blogger suggested that when the negotiating team gets to Istanbul, given the way that Ukraine has humiliated Russia, right, that's how they're seeing the terror attack against their bombers. Now, I want to be very clear. There was no terror attack. There is nothing like, if you want to talk about terror attacks, talk about the overnight raids on civilians that come into Kyiv every single night from the Russian Federation. That's a goddamn terrorist attack. Military jets, or pardon me, in some cases prop planes, but military planes on military air bases are clearly not a terrorist attack. They are military targets. So this guy says that they've been humiliated by this terrorist attack from the Ukrainians. The delegation should go to Istanbul, and it should give an ultimatum for complete surrender by the Ukrainians and then be on a plane 15 minutes later. That should be all the discussion that is required. At least 2 majors inside the Russian army have called for nuclear strikes against Ukraine, that Kyiv should be turned into a reflecting dish where no one can live for 10,000 years. That's what the Russians are saying. Now, of course, the problem with rattling nuclear saber is that the planes that deliver your nuclear bombs are all on fire. That is one of the problems there. Budlaska. Well, that's it, Mel. Who takes over, right, when Russia is finally done? I don't know the answer to that. Nobody does. But I know that there are at least 6 armed secessionist movements inside Russia right now. When Putin is gone and that power vacuum opens, I predict a modern orgy of violence, of internecine war between these factions for control of Moscow. The thing is, they're all going to have to do it without the inheritance of the Soviet Union. The iron fist of Moscow has rusted out. It's worthless today. The army is gutted. Now the Air Force is gutted. Next, all that's left is this, what little bit of a navy Russia has, mostly in the form of these nuclear-powered submarines. And Ukraine is already looking to hit them. That's what's coming. So the dissolution of the Russian Federation, I think, is simply is simply a fact of the future. It is incomprehensible to me that the Russian Federation will exist in its current form within, say, if Ukraine is able to defeat Russia militarily, drive them out of the borders, which we don't know that they'll be able to, right? Or if the collapse inside of Russia comes, there's no way within 36 months Russia will be unrecognizable. Unrecognizable. And Russia can't use its navy, right, because they can't get them into the Black Sea. Turkey controls the Straits of the Bosphorus and Dardanelles. Under the Montreux Convention, no warships can enter the Black Sea when Black Sea countries that border the Black Sea are at war. So you have to so that's why Russia brought in like 5 landing ships and 2 destroyers and a couple other ships right before the beginning of the war. 2 nuclear-powered submarines, if I'm not mistaken. So they can't get them into the Black Sea. And of course, Ukraine has demonstrated that it controls at least the western part of the Black Sea. The whole Black Sea fleet, what's left of it, is hiding over in Novorossiysk or in the port in what used to be Georgia, right? Now it's North Ossetia. And they're hiding. They're in hiding because they don't want to get blowed up by unmanned sea drones, and now unmanned sea drones that are basically loitering torpedoes. They have these new sea drones that are just a torpedo, basically, but it's powered by AI, and it can wait out in the ocean for days waiting for a target to come by. AI will identify an appropriate target and then launch itself at the target, just blowing boats up left and right. So the knock-on effects of yesterday's extraordinary operation include a reduction in the threat of nuclear force from the Russians because the nuclear bombers are burning. The nuclear subs have been attacked. An immediate reduction in Russia's ability to send missiles at this country. And of course, the problems with traffic and having to search all of these containers as Russia's insane paranoia takes over and drives everyone insane. The Russians from the Russian populace's reaction to this in social media comments and in polling is unbelievable. A lot of the people don't believe it happened. Some people are saying, oh no, those are old Russian planes that are no good anymore. We were just burning them to get rid of them. Like, that lie is catching fire among the Russian populace. Ridiculous. What else? Oh, maybe it happened, but if it happened, it wasn't just Ukraine. Ukraine could never pull this off. It had to be NATO and the West. The level of cope inside Russia is so sweet. Like, it really is the most enjoyable part of this for me. It's really very funny. You haven't seen, so you don't watch my videos, eh? Because I did videos about the Russian sub-base at Severomyorsk being attacked yesterday. And one of them includes a screenshot of Severomyorsk on fire. And in the video, which I cannot post here on TikTok, you can hear explosions cooking off. No, the subs, we don't know what happened at the sub base. We don't have a damage assessment yet from that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We're waiting for a damage assessment or some satellite imagery from that region which we do not yet have. Sorry, I'm fumbling for my notes here. Istanbul, on the subject of Istanbul, as we all expected, it was all a load of shit, just delaying tactics from the Russians. They showed up and insisted on Ukraine's basically unconditional surrender. They want Zelensky out of office. They want the entire country demilitarized. They want Ukrainian forces to withdraw, even from territory that they don't control. They just want the Ukrainians to hand over Kherson city. They want the Ukrainians to hand over the unconquered parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia, including Zaporizhia city. Just turn them over to Russia, get your forces out of there, right? And the Russian mill bloggers are melting down that that's not happening. It is inconceivable to me that these people live in a world where they think they can dictate the security arrangements of other nations to those nations. They are so used to the sheeple of the Russian nation who can be bullied, or as Stalin himself said, the Russian people are like a chicken. You can pluck them till they bleed, but you throw them a little corn and they will follow you anywhere. And that's what's happening. That's absolutely what's happening. And we got pictures of the warehouse that all of this happened from out in Chelyabinsk, which is about halfway across Russia. It's all the way out on the border with Kazakhstan. And I thought that that was interesting. I made a mistake. Oh, I need to make a retraction here. I have a video out. I was wrong about the container count. I thought that only one container was dedicated to each site. And there are videos that show at least 2 sites with 2 containers, which means there is only 1 container unaccounted for. Now, there could still be 1 container out there with as many as 24 drones in it. We're just not sure. But it's not between 1 and 3 like I thought. It's at most 1. And so I think this operation is over. I do think this operation is over, but we'll see. Just because they release pictures of 8 containers doesn't mean that that's all that there were. Oh, it's going to take generations to straighten the Russians out. I mean, the shit that comes out of their mouths is unbelievable. Yeah, well, that's because Colonel McGregor is a liar, a traitor, an unbelievable piece of shit who should be brought home, put up against a wall, and shot with good old-fashioned American ammunition. We got an update on the missing containers for the Kremlin. God, I hope so. We got an update. We know that the Ukrainians are claiming that they destroyed 1 Beriev A-50, the Russian AWAC, right? Which is a $350 million plane all by itself. We got more information about that today. There may be 2. So right there, that's $700 million of the $7 billion in those 2 planes alone. It also means that the number of these A-50s that Ukraine still or Russia still has is likely down to 7. And that's a problem for Russia, because Russia likes to fly one of these aircraft around Moscow 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, watching for incoming missile targets. To do that, you need 6 of them. They're down to 7. And the thing about that is at least half of those will always be getting serviced. They'll be down for repairs and service, not out doing their job. So one of the secondary outcomes of this attack yesterday is that the Russians no longer have the ability to police their own skies in an effective way. That's huge. That's huge in and of itself, I would argue. Okay, guys. Oh, and one more thing. We got video today of two things, sorry. We got video today of the first successful air operation of the war on the part of the Ukrainians. What I mean by that is they flew Black Hawk helicopters behind the Russian lines. They dropped off 50 guys, about 50 we think. Those 50 guys then attacked the Russians from behind, from the rear, where they were not expecting it from. They surrounded Russian positions. They eliminated one Russian after another, all the while making their way to the exfiltration point. Along the way, they encountered heavily fortified Russian positions. What do you think they did? They called in artillery strikes and drone strikes, demolished those positions, and cleared the way for them to get to the point where they could be safely retrieved, where apparently they were. We do not have a report on casualties. We don't know how many Ukrainians were lost in that operation behind the lines. It seems impossible that all of them returned whole and intact. But still, an amazing example of Ukrainian valor and bravery in the face of the overwhelming enemy. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, shoot, it went right out of my head. All right, well, let's go to Q&A and we'll see if it comes up. Again, I want to thank Scully, who is the sponsor of tonight's live, along with Julian Irvine and Jerry O. Thank you, guys. It really makes all the difference. I can't tell you. I could not stay in Ukraine if it weren't for the live sponsorships. Tomorrow night is going to be Chris Carter. And then on Wednesday, we have somebody new. Anna Rivera is sponsoring the live on Wednesday. So I've still got live sponsorships for Thursday and Friday. Thank you, Scully, for Thursday and Friday if anybody wants to sponsor live. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server. And big thanks to Jay and Travis, the moderators. Thank you, guys. Any news on the bridges? Daryl. Dude, so over the weekend, we saw a bridge in Bryansk blown over a road bridge over a railway. Then the same day, we saw a bridge in Kursk blown. That was a rail bridge that had a freight train on it at the time, carrying resupply to the guys in Kursk. Then we saw a fuel train in Zaporizhia go up in smoke, and another train platform hit in Kursk, in Lvov. So the weekend was a devastating weekend for Russian railroad logistics. We don't know exactly what happened with the bridges. It seemed, Flip, right, I know, you're laughing, pal. It seems unlikely that this could happen by coincidence on the same day and it just be a failure or an example of Russian corruption. It seems as though the Ukrainians are very precisely targeting Russian logistics lines to ensure that the Russians in Kursk don't get resupplied, or down in Melitopol don't get resupplied. That appears to be what's happening. Sorry, it was like 80 degrees here today. Okay. Boy, I wish I could remember what I forgot. I was going to say, would China not support Russia with AWACS? Well, that's an interesting question, Alex. I don't have any idea whether or not China has AWACS to spare, or if they did, they would openly give them to Russia. To date, they haven't. Do school children in colleges get briefed on what to do in a nuke strike? I don't have any idea, Holly. I'm not involved in education here. I don't have any idea. Now, the government has put out, the government did make available iodine tablets for households with pregnant and nursing mothers, small children, etc. Those iodine tablets have efficacy in preventing thyroid cancer in younger people. People my age, it's pointless to have them, pointless to take them, pointless to hoard them. Give them to somebody, give them to young mothers and their children, if you've got a bunch of them. Beyond that, I don't know what kind of education has been given, because nobody believes for a second that Russia's going to make a nuclear strike. It seems extraordinarily unlikely that that's going to happen. It could. Something could happen. Something could go wrong. A mistake could get made, whatever. Duck and cover, baby. Duck and cover. Duck and cover. Then kiss your ass goodbye, sweetheart. The Rusky missiles that went nowhere last twice, they are threatening to send one tonight. Oh, I know, Jax. I know they are. The mighty Oreshnik. You must quake in fear of Oreshnik. Oreshnik is a joke. Not only that, it's a $120 million joke. $120 million a pop, those fucking things. So it seems highly unlikely that those are going anywhere. Hey, Jason Wills Starrin. Sorry, Jay. I will eventually get that right one of these days. What do you think, Jay? You think they're going to nuke us? Nicola Jones says, Peter, didn't you say the expert analysis said that Russia's nukes don't work? So to be clear, I have said that the consensus among experts is that it's likely that zero of the Russian tactical nuclear arsenal is in working order. That's correct, Nicola. However, that's only 1/3 of the arsenal. That's about 2,000 weapons out of about 6,000. What concerns us are the 1,755 deployed nuclear devices. That's what concerns us. The ones that are on board ships, they probably work, or why would you put them on the ship? The ones that are ready to get mounted onto planes, they probably work. Or why would you have them at the airfields, right? The ones in the silos, they're anybody's guess, frankly, given kind of the history. Well, yeah, the U.S. only has to do maintenance on ours, right? Because we're not building new nukes, to the best of my knowledge. The difference, though, Judy, is Russia spends, for every $5 America spends on the maintenance of its nuclear arsenal, Russia spends $1. And then, of course, you don't know how many of those dollars actually get spent on the maintenance and how many of them the generals are funneling off for weekends on their yachts with a bunch of young girls from St. Petersburg. The Bolshoi Ballet is coming this weekend, General. So it is unlikely that all of the strategic stockpile is still operational. Highly unlikely. The deployed stockpile of 1,755, they probably work. And that's a lot of nukes. Surely it's pointless as it's mutually assured destruction. Yeah, if you're a rational human being. The question is, are there enough rational human beings around Putin to ensure that Russia never makes this mistake. And they better not make that mistake, because almost 1 in 4 Russians live in St. Petersburg or Moscow. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw nuclear missiles around. 2 missiles and 500 years of Russian culture, language, and people come to an end in 43 minutes. So it seems highly unlikely. What about taking out their satellites? Well, we have something called I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's called the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. And that specifically forbids the targeting of satellites in space or the creation and production and implementation of any weapons-based space platforms, which is why there aren't any. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that if the Russians were to fire a nuke, it is as likely to irradiate Moscow or Minsk as it is to hit Kyiv, given everything that we've seen about their weapons and their effectiveness, etc. Hey, Wes. Are Putin dead? I would love an answer to that question, Jan. I would love an answer to that question. We don't know. We don't know. I'm sorry. We don't know. Yeah. I mean, nuclear weapons are extremely complicated, sensitive devices. You got to replenish those tritium, right? Tritium decays at a rate of 0.2 grams per year. And you need about 4 grams in the fissile trigger for the thing to go off. So that means every year you got to be pumping 0.2 grams in there to keep yourself at a critical mass. That's just one small example of how nuclear weapons have to be maintained. And tritium is extraordinarily expensive and difficult to produce. It ends up costing you about $30,000 a gram to produce it. Now, does anybody here think that the Russian military has the patience, the intelligence, the resourcefulness, and the discipline to spend that $30,000 a gram? And you need a gram for every 5 missiles every year that you have just to keep them functional? Or do you think they spent that $30,000 on a night out in St. Petersburg? Vodka for all. Tonight it is raining in Ukraine. It rains every night here. Drones and missiles. Shells. So please. It's been raining for 3 years straight. Golden Dome is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Is Putin on TV? It's... According to the Japanese scientists that have done the face and voice recognition, it hasn't been Putin on TV in some time. The real Putin. It's his body doubles. So, but we just don't really know. B. Tater, I have no idea what you're apologizing for. I don't know what that's about. Correct, Mike. Do you think the Russians are able to take Sumy? I don't know the answer to that. I know that the Ukrainian forces have said that they are prepared for them. But beyond that, what that means or how effective the defense of Sumy will turn out to be, given the vagaries of war, and we don't know where the North Koreans are. Are the North Koreans going to be part of that invasion into Ukraine? Or will they keep them in Russia? We don't know. That's a good point, Truth Hurts. China and India both, who are just about the only friends that Russia has left, have both told Putin not to dare use nuclear weapons. I mean, I don't know. If Putin fired off some nukes, is it possible that maybe China would take out Moscow and then seize the eastern half of the country? I don't know. Hey, Samso. We don't know, Judy. We don't know what the real Putin status is. Hey, Neil. Get all the Putins together and play Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's great. Obi-John Kenobi. You and Kherson, baby. Because I've been looking to get back to Kherson. I really would like to get back to Kherson. The problem that I have is that the commandant doesn't, the Kherson commandant's office doesn't want anybody taking pictures or making videos. So the last time I was there, I had to experience Kherson. Then I went to Mykolaiv, and for 3 days I sat in a hotel room just making videos. So to go back, I really need a dispensation from the commandant of Kherson that I can video. And I'm happy to limit the video to what he says, but why don't we take out the massing troops before they are ready to go? Well, because it's not like there's 50,000 troops in one place, Judy. They're spread out in a line that's, 100 kilometers long. There's a dozen here, there's 200 there, right? And any time that there's a real troop concentration, God knows the Ukrainians try to hit it. But you have to first discover where it is. And as I understand it, that's mostly done through U.S. intelligence. U.S. real-time or near real-time satellite imagery lets the Ukrainians know where the troops are massing. Then the Ukrainians try to hit them. We see HIMARS strikes against troop concentrations. We see AASM hammer strikes against troop concentrations. It's my opinion, which I think is borne out by the circumstances, that it's because the Ukrainians are constantly putting that pressure on Russian troops and their movements in Kursk that the Sumy invasion was delayed and has been so slow to get started. I think so. Oh, B-Tater, is that what we had a problem with last night? Is you talking about those people here? Please don't do that. I need that to go away. We do not promote that group here. So that's gone. Those guys are a scam. Please do not ever put their name in my comments again. Alyonka Korkovich, Budlaska. Yeah, send me a message, Obi-John, and who your contact is. Thank you, Brian. I do not think Russia's going to nuke anybody. No, I do not. except maybe themselves. That could happen. That could happen. Gerard, I don't think we can expect a second spiderweb action because it's a one and done, right? It would be very surprising to me if they were able to pull it off again. But I don't know. Who knows? That's the great thing. Hey, Tony Takiri, that's the great thing about watching the Ukrainians work. You don't have any idea what's coming next. And when it comes, it's always fascinating. Absolutely fascinating and unexpected. So, guys, we're down to about 8 minutes. Zelensky has all the cards and always did, brother. Zelensky has all the cards. There's no two ways about it. I don't know how anybody could say that what Ukraine did was wrong. It was a gift to the West. Huge. Uncle Christopher, to the best of my knowledge, if you're talking about the Abrams from Australia, they are en route. They are being shipped, yes. Thank you, Gerard. It really was a shocker, boy. Yeah, Ukraine was always the brains of the Soviet Union. You know, a friend of mine, her mother, helped put the GLONASS satellite systems in orbit. Fascinating woman. Did her first doctoral dissertation on gravitational waves. Really, really interesting person. Okay, we have about 7 minutes left. So real quick, let me again thank the sponsors of tonight's live and encourage you to sponsor a live. PayPal is in the description. Big thanks to Scully, Julian Irvine, and Jerry O, and not to Magnus Carlsen. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group, Lars, who has the Discord server, and to our moderator team, Jay and Travis. Thank you all so much, gentlemen. I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv. Last thoughts as we close out the night. How many S-500s are left? We believe that only 5 were built, right? 5 complete systems. It is not impossible that one of them was destroyed in Crimea, but we don't know. That is unconfirmed. There were rumors that one had been brought into Crimea. There were rumors that it had been destroyed. We don't know. So there are likely 4 or 5 of them, but they are worthless. They're worthless because they don't use the same ammunition as the S-300 and the S-400. S-300 and 400 are interchangeable. The S-500 is its own species, and there's not enough of them, and they haven't built enough missiles for them. So the S-500 is never going to come into play in this war, just like the T-14 Armada is never going to come into play in this war, just like the Su-57 is never going to be meaningful in this war. All of Russia's latest and greatest weapons are lies and PR stunts to rip off third world countries with weapons that don't even fucking work or exist, for that matter. They don't exist. What else? We got 5 minutes. Night, Julian. Thanks, Dawn. A-50s, mostly the fleet has been grounded since Ukraine destroyed 2 of them last year. We believe that 1 was destroyed yesterday, maybe 2. That brings the number of A-50s left in the fleet down to 7 or 8, which, given that they spend half their time being serviced, right, that leaves maybe 4 operational A-50s. How was last night in Kyiv? Oh, God, Mike, can you tell how exhausted I am? I got no sleep last night. I got no sleep at all. I was literally just about to go to bed. And the air raid siren sounded. And then I was up for like another 2 hours or something. And then I only slept from like 4:30 to 8:30, maybe not even that, because they started construction right outside my window on the street with hydraulic equipment that every time they use the hydraulics, it sounds like an air alarm starting up. And so then at 8:30, I couldn't go back to sleep. Every time it started, it was like, So no, I'm totally exhausted. Thanks, Flip. Good night. Best to the wife. Do you know anything about START treaty between USA and Russia signed in 2010? START's been negated. Russia's pulled out of it. I think Trump pulled us out of it too, didn't he? I'm not sure about the details, but to the best of my knowledge, nobody's any longer participating in that treaty. And that's a problem. Nuclear proliferation in the world is a problem. And the idea that we in the West are walking away from it is stupid beyond words. Is the UK going to add 12 new hunter-killer nuke-powered subs? Interesting. They should, because Russia recruits as many men every month as about half of the entire UK army, right? You guys have what, about 80,000 army guys? And Russia recruits 40,000 a month, and then loses 40,000 a month too. So, yeah, I don't know anything about it, Seawolf, and I'm certainly no submarine expert. Oh, the United States has way more than 12. I'm sure of that. Can anybody look it up real quick? How many nuclear-powered, nuclear-capable subs does the U.S. have? I have a high degree of confidence it's more than 12. There's a long list. If you look at, I have a video pinned to the top of the profile, although that video is old. But there's a video there called Sources and Methods. And I identify some specific people in that. But you know what? You're right. That video is old. I should probably update that. It's a good point. Okay, guys. It's just about 1 a.m. here. So I'm going to call it a night. Thanks, Stellar Fast Bikes. So I'm going to call it a night. Thanks again to Scully, who is the sponsor of tonight's live, along with Julian and Jerio. And big thanks to Chris Carter and Andrea Rivera, who really came out at a critical time for me, who will be sponsoring tomorrow and Wednesday's night's lives, respectively. If you are not a member of the Patreon, please consider joining the Patreon. I lost one $70 member last month, but I gained $70 in $5 members, which is definitely what I would much rather have 100 people sponsoring me at $5 a month than to have one person sponsoring me at $500 a month. I feel like this channel should be a community project. And I'm deeply grateful to everybody who's in the Patreon who behaves as if it is a community project and who sends me messages and sends me links to articles and stuff. We get it done together as a group. So I really appreciate everybody there. Thanks, Uncle Christopher. Hey, happy birthday, David. And good night, everybody. Take care.